Hello everybody. So today we're going to learn a new topic. And before doing that, we're going to read some sentences. The first one says, people know the Oktoberfest as the largest Volksfest in the world. Let's have a look at these new version of the same sentence. The Oktoberfest is known as the largest fall fest in the world. So what has happened? So the first thing we have to do is to identify the different elements present in the first example. So we have people as the subject of the sentence. Then we have the verb know, which is in the present. Then we have the Oktoberfest, which is the object. And finally, we have the complement, which extends from as the largest up to in the world. So what has happened? The second sentence contains exactly the same information, but the order has been changed. It has been modified. So what we can see is that the object from the original sentence has become the subject of the new sentence. Then we have the verb, yes, which remains as the second element of the sentence, but with some slight changes. As it is in the present, I have included is, the auxiliary verb to be is, plus the verb in the third column or the past participle form, which you can find in the irregular verbs list. Then people is not present in the new version of the sentence because it will be the agent. The agent is the person who does or performs the action, but it is irrelevant. Yes. So who celebrates Oktoberfest? People. Yeah? People in general. And finally, the complement without any changes. So let's take a look at the following example. Germans run the Oktoberfest for 16 days. Again, we have a subject which is Germans, a verb in the present which is run, the Oktoberfest, which is the object, and finally the complement. So let's take a look. The Oktoberfest is run by Germans for 16 days. So we have the object, which becomes the subject of my new sentence. Then the verb run is run. The verb to be is in this case, because it's only one. It's the Oktoberfest is like having it as a pronoun. And run in the third column because it is irregular. Yeah? And in this case, I have included the agent. Yes, in the original sentence, Germans was the subject, but in the new version, it becomes the agent, the person or people who performs the action. Introduced by the word by Germans. And finally, the complement as final element of my sentence. All right, so this is what we call active versus passive voice. So the first or the original versions of the sentence that we saw are in the active voice, yeah, and the new versions are in the passive voice. So what is the difference between active and passive voice? Well, the difference is that the active voice emphasizes the person or the agent who performs the action, the doer of the action, while the passive voice emphasizes the action itself, the action done by the agent or the person. All right, so we're going to study present passive voice and past passive voice. So we're going to start with a few examples in the present. So we have, people also know the National Stadium in Beijing as the bird's nest. So we have a subject, a verb, an object, and a complement. So we have to move the object as the first element. It will become the subject. So the object becomes the subject in the passive voice, the National Stadium in Beijing. It's only one, yes, the sentence is in the present. So I have to decide between is, are. Yeah? In this case, we should use is because it's only one. Yeah? It's like having it as a pronoun. Is also known. Yes, know is irregular. If we look for it in the irregular verbs list, you will find that known is the past participle form of the verb, yeah, or the third column. All right, in this case, the subject that will become the agent is not important, yeah, so we do not include it, and the complement always remains as the final element of the sentence, yeah. So we have subject, verb, complement in the passive voice. Let's take a look at a new example. Hurricanes seldom hit New York City. New York City is the object, which will become the subject of the sentence in the passive. Is seldom hit by hurricanes. In this case, the subject in the active becomes the agent, and we include it because it is important. So what hits New York City? Hurricanes. So New York City is seldom hit by hurricanes. Remember that the agent, when it is important and we decide to include it, should be introduced with the word by. Another example, they use the main hall for special occasions. The main hall is the object, which becomes the subject of the sentence in the passive voice, is used. In this case, I have used did because it is an irregular verb. The subject is not important, so we do not include it as the agent in the second version, in the passive voice version. And for special occasions, which was the complement, remains as a complement. The main hall is used for special occasions. There's no use in saying the main hall is used by them. Yes, who are they? Yeah, so it's not important. People light the gardens at night. The gardens are lit at night. Yeah. Object, which becomes the subject. Verb, In this case, we use are because it's gardens. It's like having they as a pronoun. The agent is not important. And at night, which is the complement, remains as the final element. All right. So remember that in the present, in the passive voice, in the present, we use is, or are plus a verb with d or ed if it is regular, or the verb in the third column or past participle, and we can find them in the irregular verbs list. Yeah, all right. So let's move on to past passive voice. So let's take a look at these examples. Bishop de Salle started the Cathedral of Notre Dame in 1163. We have subject, verb, object, complement. The object becomes the new subject. The verb remains in the second place, but in this case, as it is in the past, we have to decide whether to use was or were. In this case, we use was because it is a place. The Cathedral of Notre Dame could be replaced by it, yes, and we all know that it is used with was. Started, yeah, no changes here because the verb is regular and it is already modified. Yeah, in this case, the subject from the active voice is relevant because it's the name of the bishop. So we include it as the agent of the sentence by Bishop de Salle. Remember to introduce the agent by using the word by, yes, and the complement remains as the final element of the sentence. Then we have Gustave Eiffel's engineering company decided and built the Eiffel Tower in the active voice. The Eiffel Tower, yeah, the object becomes the subject, was designed and built, yeah, by Gustave Eiffel's engineering company. Yeah, so the agent is important. In this case, we do not have a complement. They finished the Lotus Temple in 1986, active voice, subject, verb, object, and complement. And in the passive voice, we have the Lotus Temple was finished in 1986. In this case, the agent or the doer of the action is not important. They designed the Palm Islands of Dubai to look like palm trees. The Palm Islands of Dubai, yeah, were designed, yes, because there are many islands, yes, plural, they were designed to look like palm trees. So the doer of the action again is not important, yes, because we do not have specific names. All right. And finally, we have they started the construction in 2001. The construction was started in 2001. Yeah. The object becomes the subject, the verb remains the verb, was before the verb. Yeah. In this case, we added ed. The doer of the action is not important, so it's not included, and the complement remains the complement. Okay. So I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about passive an active voice. And now let's move on to the